Good evening, everyone who is joining us. We're just starting off the webinar. It's a new way of engaging with people this evening. We're also joining on Facebook Live, and we're just merging everyone in who is coming via Facebook Live for those who are waiting. I'm Mayor Dylan Parker. I have with us this evening our Director of City Services, Mr. Todd Clarke, and we have Anika Hoffman, who has been a great help to Randwick Council from Group GSA in the preparation of these plans. So for anyone who is just tuning in now, we're just waiting a few seconds while those who are listening join online via Facebook Live. I'm Mayor Dylan Parker. We've got council staff as well as Group GSA just to hear your thoughts around the Maroubra Junction Public Domain Master Plan, and we'll kick off in a few moments. But just for everyone, hold tight, and we look forward to running you through some of the plans which we've been working on behind the scenes for several months now, and we hope that you like. But if you want to give your feedback as well, we'd love to hear that as well. So what we're waiting on is just to connect to everyone who is joining us via Facebook and joining online. So a new way of engaging with the public. Hope you hold with us rather than getting in a cold town centre in a cold meeting hall and putting up some slides. We thought from the comfort of your own home or car or office or wherever, we'd jump out and join with you. So we'll give it a few seconds just to see where we're going online, and we'll kick off shortly after that. So while we wait, just for the Facebook Live to kick off as well, joining with this webinar, for anyone who may just be joining us now or is joined a little bit earlier below, what we're going to do is run through a run through of the good work which Council's been working on for the last few months in relation to the Maroubra Junction Master Plan. We'll hear from myself. I'm the Mayor of Randwick. We have Todd Clarke, our Director of City Services, and Anika Hoffman. And if at any point you have any questions in relation to the Maroubra Junction Public Domain Master Plan, feel free to put them in the chat, and we will kick off from there. So look, I'm led to believe that we've got everyone online. Thank you so much for the patience for everyone who joined a little bit earlier. I'm Dylan Parker, the Mayor of Randwick. I've got Todd Clarke, our Director of City Services, as well as Anika Hoffman from GSA Group, who has been a great help to Randwick Council over the last period, putting together the Maroubra Junction Public Domain Master Plan. I know that it has been a topic of quite considerable interest across the community, and we thought we would share with you some of the work which has been going on in the background, and to get your feedback and your thoughts and your input. Before I kick off, I would just like to acknowledge, even though we are joining remotely, that we are all meeting on Aboriginal land, and to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional custodians of wherever you are all joining us on. I'd like to acknowledge the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. So for anyone who is joining us this evening, whether it's online via the webinar or on Facebook Live, how tonight's going to run is we're going to have an overview of the Maroubra Junction Master Plan from Anika and Group GSA. We'll then have more of an open, free-flowing conversation amongst the panelists with some commonly asked questions, and then we'll throw it over to you if you have any questions. And how we'll go about that is, if you're joining on the Zoom webinar, just put them in the chat there, or on Facebook Live, just comment on the feed, and we'll feed those through to me, and I'll ask them to the panelists, or I might even answer some of them myself. So with that, we might kick off. I'll throw to Anika from from Group GSA, who has done a fair bit of work for us, who'll give an overview of the Maroubra Junction Master Plan before I throw to her for anyone who is tuning in. Council since 2021, we've been preparing a public domain master plan for improvements for the Maroubra Junction area. When I'm out and about, I've got plenty of people who contact me wanting to improve the area, and it's particularly the public domain, the open space, the footpaths, the connections, parking, and just the overall how the town centre functions, the objects of this public domain master plan. And it's been a long time coming, but we're here with some work for you. And without further ado, I will throw to Anika, who will give an overview of what we've prepared so far.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm just going to share a presentation. So we have prepared a public domain master plan for Maroubra Junction. I have summarised it in a little presentation here, which we'll run through. The full document is available as part of the Your Say Randwick consultation. So it's all on the website. There's plenty of detail there. So please get over there and have a look at the document when you have a moment. So as a bit of a background, Council engaged Group GSA to prepare this master plan document. So the intent of the document is to guide the development of the public domain over the short and medium term. And we've also, in addition to that, come up with some big ideas which may be used to guide some longer term improvements, but they're outside of the scope of this actual project. This diagram shows the extent of the works, the works area that we're looking at. So in the west, we have the Bunurong Road and the local shops over there. Through the middle of the project, we've got ANZAC Parade and Maroubra Junction, obviously centred around Pacific Square. In the east, we go over to the Flower Street local shops, and in the north up towards Story Street to Maroubra Junction Public School, and in the south down near the juniors down there. So it's a fairly extensive project area. The purpose of the master plan is to develop an overarching strategy that addresses the public domain and allows council to pull out smaller projects for implementation over the years. So none of the recommendations of this master plan haven't been done to a detailed design level yet. So everything needs to be worked out in finer grained detail, but it's an overarching principles document that will guide council in the implementation of projects over the next few years. So the main principles of the master plan are to make Maroubra Junction vibrant, comfortable, make it lively, supporting businesses and encouraging locals and visitors to stay longer, making it memorable and inclusive, celebrating the uniqueness of Maroubra, and also making sure it's a really welcoming place for people to meet and gather. It needs to be connected and accessible. Alongside that, being safe and easy to get around is really important, and with good transport links to encourage people in and out of the precinct. And biodiverse and resilient, obviously we need to look at the changes that are happening in the future. So looking at increasing urban forest canopy cover, really making sure these places are really comfortable, and doing what we can to make sure that they're climate resilient as well. In terms of the phasing, the public domain master plan covers the short and medium term of this, like the implementation. So phase one, there's a few projects have been identified there. All of this needs to be confirmed in finer budgeting and that sort of thing with council, but there's a few projects there. We've mentioned a possible bi-directional cycleway and shared path on ANZAC Parade. So that's out of the existing Randwick cycleway strategy. Some Maroubra roadworks, which are subject to a more detailed traffic study, but we've identified in this document. Things like improved paving, new street furniture, supplementary tree planting to increase canopy cover, CCTV, and strategies to ease traffic congestion and improve the nighttime economy. Moving into the medium term would be looking at some more works along ANZAC Parade, including things like curb widening, tree planting, gateway treatments, looking at rationalising potentially some of the median parking, creating a new pedestrian crossing, ideally near Pacific Square, to improve pedestrian safety, creation of some shared zones, looking at whether we can reclaim some space back from the road in some instances, and creation of a cultural walk around the junction. And then big ideas are things that we identified in early consultation with the community back in 2021. And so there's some really big picture ideas that we could use to transform that whole precinct as a driver for investment, and I guess they would be implemented in conjunction with bigger projects, looking at more wholesome transport changes and that sort of thing. So running through some of the key areas, this is Maroubra Road near ANZAC Parade. So the key proposals in here are looking at footpath widening and tree planting, potential bidirectional cycleway. So that is subject to a more detailed traffic study of Maroubra Road, but that would be establishing an east-west link for cyclists along Maroubra Road. There'd be new tree planting blisters within parking lanes. So we're looking at maintaining parking, but adding tree canopies in to improve pedestrian safety and comfort. And along the Maroubra Road corridor, we've identified the opportunity to underground power lines as a progressive strategy into the future. Maroubra Road up towards Bunurong Road, and this would be a similar treatment at the Flower Street shops as well. Again, the continuation of the possible cycleway. Really important for us to try and maintain all the existing traffic and parking lanes in these zones, because we know that local shops are very reliant on those. Looking at reconfiguring intersections where we can to remove some slip lanes, which improves pedestrian safety and makes the precinct a bit more permeable. And again, more tree planting to improve shade and comfort throughout. We have also identified in this zone possible new plaza space at Wild Street. So I'll jump into that in a little bit more detail later. Maroubra Road links, so this would be east and west of the core Maroubra Junction precinct, where we don't have retail, it's a bit more residential focus. So looking at widening footpaths where necessary, again, the continuation of the possible cycleway, and again, maintaining existing traffic and parking. So through these zones, it would be mostly focused on tree planting and remove possible underground power lines and that sort of thing to just improve the overall amenity for everybody. ANZAC Parade near Maroubra Road, we are proposing to have a look at what we can do with the traffic and parking lanes in this area. Again, trying to retain as much parking as we can, but potentially rationalising some traffic lanes to get some extra width in footpaths, and that extra width will allow us to get tree planting and just improve pedestrian safety and encourage the built form to have a bit more of an activated facade. So allowing potential for outdoor dining and those sorts of activities into the future. There's a new bidirectional cycleway, as I mentioned earlier, and shared path within the median. So that's an existing Randwick Council strategy. And looking at remodelling some of the median parking to improve the functionality of it. So we're retaining that, but yeah, potentially remodelling and rationalising it if we can. And through the central zone here in front of Pacific Square, we're suggesting the idea of having a signalised pedestrian crossing. So that would link east-west from the existing bus stop on the eastern side of ANZAC Parade all the way through the median with a new small plaza, which is the image here, and across to Pacific Square. So we know that that's a really strong pedestrian desire line, and we'd like to formalise that and really improve the safety for everybody in the precinct. ANZAC Parade links, so this is looking north and south of the main retail core. So that, again, that cycleway and shared path popping in there, and looking at, again, increased tree planting in some zones, potentially expanding the habitat planting where it exists. In other areas, that won't apply. So improving the accessibility through there. And then local streets throughout the precinct, we're really just focused in these areas on getting additional tree planting in where we can. Obviously, where space allows between driveways and where we have space under overhead power lines, and widening footpaths where necessary. So just making it just a bit more welcoming and an inclusive environment throughout. Pedestrian priority zones. So we've identified the opportunity where lanes hit the main roads of Maroubra Road and ANZAC Parade as an opportunity to create these pedestrian zones where vehicles would still have access, but it would be a shared zone. So it's a much slower traffic zone. And we have the opportunity of implementing public art, like potentially painting blank facades of buildings or feature lighting overhead, and ultimately encouraging active frontages to these as built form eventually gets redeveloped into the future. Pedestrian priority zones. So as I mentioned, we had looked at traffic options for reclaiming a little bit of space back for the community. So at the end of Robey Street, where it hits Maroubra Road, we've identified a couple of slip lanes that could be removed. So we are still proposing that Robey Street connects to Maroubra Road, but that would be a shared zone environment, which prioritises the pedestrians and slows vehicles down. And then closing the slip lane into the adjacent road at Walsh Street would just slow the traffic down a little bit more on that corner and let us have this little pedestrian plaza created. So a lovely little green spot on that Maroubra Road corridor. And then the other one is at Wild Street. So over near Bunurong Road, we have identified the potential to close Wild Street to Maroubra Road. So that would be closing the slip lanes as well from Maroubra Road onto Bunurong Road, ideally. And we could create a new pedestrian plaza here. So this would be quite a strong gateway into the Maroubra Junction precinct and provides the opportunity to have outdoor dining, encouraging rejuvenation of the built form and really activating these areas. It's important if we create these spaces that they're active and they're used so that they are safe and accessible for everybody. So yeah, that's the main principle in that zone. Moving beyond the scope of the public domain master plan, I guess, in terms of what we're implementing, some of the big ideas. So these came out of the discussions we had with the community in our first consultation sessions, almost 2 years ago now. So the first idea was, these are all focused on ANZAC Parade, I should mention. First idea was to reconfigure the traffic lanes on ANZAC Parade. So pushing the traffic lanes more towards the east and creating a lovely plaza on the western side. So the area outside, say, Pacific Square and the block potentially north of that as well would have a really wide pedestrian plaza there that would allow us to have some smaller events or markets. We would also aim to have a widened footpath on the eastern side, so there would also be a gain there, but the focus of the public domain would be on the other side there. Second big idea was the promenade. So that involves narrowing the median down to quite a narrow one, and pushing all the traffic towards the centre and having two generous plazas on each side of ANZAC Parade, so they would be a little bit more equal. And yeah, we could have some really lovely spaces there where we allow for outdoor dining, for gathering spaces, and it pushes traffic a bit further away from the built form, so encourages activation of the public domain through outdoor dining and those sorts of activities as well. And then the third and final big idea was probably the most radical, which is to drop ANZAC Parade down into a tunnel through that central zone, and we just have a big pedestrian plaza there. So potentially allowing for some public transport if there was potentially a future light rail extension that could be accommodated through there, but we would allow for some limited service vehicle access for loading and deliveries, access controlled, of course. But essentially we'd have a really large open plaza area, which would allow council to look at some programming of things like events and marketing and markets. And yeah, give us a lot of potential to focus on pedestrians and active transport through there. All right, so where to next? The full master plan report, as I mentioned, is available for public viewing and comment. We would love to hear your feedback. All the details are on the Your Say website, so please head over there and you can submit your feedback through the online submission or send your comments through to the GM. There's all the instructions on there, so I won't go through here. We also have 3 pop-ups at Pacific Square next week. So there's Wednesday during the day, Thursday evening and Saturday morning. So please feel free to join us at any of those if you want to have a face-to-face discussion with anybody. All right, I'll throw back over to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. For anyone who joined midway through or in the later end of that presentation, how we're running this evening is obviously we've just had Anika who has presented some of the plans for the Maroubra Junction Public Domain Master Plan, but we're also here to take any of your questions which you may have in relation to the plan. How that will work is feel free to put your questions in the Q&A chat or comment on Facebook Live. We've had a fair few come through, but before I throw to that, I might ask a couple before, firstly to our Director of City Services, Todd Clarke, just if you wanted to, for anyone who may have been intrigued when this popped up and just wanted to get an idea going, okay, that's great, these are some fantastic plans, but what is a master plan and how does that fit into the hierarchy of, council documents, and why would council go about, conducting a master planning exercise for Maroubra Junction, and how is that a useful exercise?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a really good question. Often, urban planning and design, we can get caught up with some jargon and some buzzwords, but essentially a master plan or a public domain plan, as it's also commonly referred to, is a long-term plan or a long-term vision for a precinct. In this case being Maroubra Junction, and as Anika mentioned, the scope of Maroubra Junction, including both ANZAC Parade and Maroubra Road. So, a master plan as such looks at that precinct's population, the economy, the services provided within, the movement of place and people. It looks at buildings, connection to transport and infrastructure. So it really has a very overarching look at the area which is bound by the master plan and how everything connects and is integrated. Then what we do is look at possibilities by concepts. Anika, again, just done a fantastic job at showing us some artist impression and some concepts as how the solutions may be interpreted and applied on a master plan. So it's really a long-term plan broken down, short-term strategies, medium-term strategies, and then long-term strategies, or as they're referenced here, big ideas of how we may consider all of those elements, all those moving parts, the infrastructure, places, people, and the connection of everything, and how we can address the community's aspirations and needs over the next 20 years. Why did we pick Maroubra Junction? So in Council's 2040 vision, or the Randwick vision, and the local strategic planning statement, Maroubra Junction was identified as a strategic centre, given its proximity to East Gardens and the connection of the road network and the transport network from Maroubra and East Gardens. Obviously, as the Mayor referred to earlier on, there's some areas from an asset perspective in that area that are getting tired and weathered and probably no longer performing to the standard that the community expects. So, in consideration of all those factors, Maroubra Junction was a prominent thought, and we made sure, along with 1 or 2 other master plans, that this was considered imminently.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. What I might do is I'll now throw to Anika. One of the themes which I'm picking up just from the questions and comments which are coming through is a keen interest in parking. and the consideration of parking in the development of this master plan. And so what I might ask is, how did the master plan look at the balance between people and pedestrians, cyclists, as well as those who, travel by car, and how, in your view, do we create a feeling of community as well as a convenient place to park and an enjoyable experience for everyone?
Yeah. Look, that's a really good question. It's really tricky to answer, actually. We've tried to design so that we're not taking away parking, because we are conscious that parking is such a hot topic for everybody who visits Maroubra Junction. The majority of people do come by car, so we've been conscious that we are trying not to remove parking. Our proposals, I guess, are at master plan level, so anything that gets implemented does need to go into that detailed design level, and make sure that we can implement what we've proposed without major losses. But it is really important that we do look into the future and really try to do what we can to prioritise pedestrians and active transport, and really making it a safe precinct. And we can do that a multitude of ways, but it's really important for us to get in, tree planting and widen footpaths and allowing us to activate the precinct, allowing businesses to have outdoor dining. It makes it a safer place because we have people using the space at night. It becomes a really welcoming and vibrant community. And I think that's what we want for somewhere like Maroubra Junction. It has so much potential, and it's really important for us to provide the framework for, the local community and businesses to build on that and fill it out and give life to that.
One of the things, just kind of leapfrogging off of that, and it actually segues well to one of the questions which have just come through from an individual on Facebook, which is, how would the new Pacific Square Plaza or the junction area in general be protected from antisocial activity so that the public feels safe enough to stay in the area for extended periods? Before I throw to either of the two panelists, I actually think that is an excellent question, and has been some of the feedback which council has received in the past few years in relation to making sure that the Maroubra Junction area is an inviting and safe and vibrant and diverse as well place for individuals to spend time to do business and obviously to travel through, and part of, from an elected perspective, is the role of documents such as these is to consider the whole range of uses, but that has definitely been a consideration. But on a more technical perspective, I might throw to some of the panelists, and just in terms of how these plans, consider antisocial behaviour and addressing that going into the future.
Yeah, I'm happy to kick off that one, Anika, if you like, and then hand to yourself if you'd like to add anything. So obviously antisocial behaviour in Maroubra Junction is a pertinent topic. We on a daily basis, not daily, but on a regular basis, look to work with the New South Wales Police in some of the issues that we're currently facing. But then in context of a master plan, what we're really looking to achieve, broadly, is the activation of spaces where we're seeing antisocial behaviour. And by nature of activating these spaces and making them more accessible, whether it's through lighting, whether through just general design and making it conducive to just general passive recreation, and not supporting antisocial behaviour by designing nooks and crannies that may promote some of those issues. We're really looking to activate spaces. We've already started out there with the project that many of you may be aware of, opposite Pacific Square, but it's really carrying on those considerations through the design and making them lighter, making them brighter, having spaces that are conducive to all demographics, and just really activating the space that takes it away from an area that would attract antisocial behaviour, as we're currently seeing out there undoubtedly at the moment.
Okay. Anika, was there anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I think Todd's covered it. I think the main priority, for us is encouraging that passive surveillance and that sort of thing. By activating the precinct, you get more passive surveillance, and that behaviour just naturally melts away. In the longer term, that's the vision. So I understand there's a few hurdles to get there.
Fair enough. I have a question that's come through from Jordan saying, any strategies in place to create more venues or spaces for live musicians? Currently, there are so few venues that are dedicated to musicians. What steps are council looking to help foster any or these such spaces?
Probably more a question for you, Todd.
Okay, yeah. So Anika mentioned some of the key areas or conceptual drawings of some of the key areas, but again, it's similar to the on the flip side of the coin to the antisocial. We're looking to activate spaces and pedestrianised areas, whether it be Wild Street, Robey Street, remodelling the car parking on ANZAC Parade to be more conducive to that passive recreational space. So creating probably more passive venues that live performances can be facilitated in, and whether it be busking or another form of art and cultural activity. The design in every sense, and probably more of some of the short-term measures this may be achieved, is creating space for those performances.
Yeah, look, I think it's a fantastic question, and just to follow on from what Todd has mentioned, it's straying a little bit from the Maroubra Junction Public Domain Master Plan. One of the things which this does is obviously looks at public domain and places where activation can occur. Separate to that, what council has been doing is we've been working on a busking program. I don't know if anyone who's jumped online around over our summer months, our live music program in public spaces as well. And one of the things which I can at least see is the incorporation of other aspects which council has really been pushing into the Maroubra Junction Town Centre, as well as activation for other activities such as markets and the like, where it can complement that. And that's all tied to having a suitable location there. So with that, I might throw to some of the other questions. And there is a commentary. There's actually a range of questions around trees and canopy cover and mature trees, as well as ensuring that that we have a green town centre. And I'm just curious if any of the panellists want to just talk a bit more extensively around some of the measures which are being considered around trees in order to encourage a larger and more mature canopy cover.
In terms of, I guess, the implementation of them, there's a number of strategies that could be looked at into when it comes to actually planting trees. So there's things like passive watering and that sort of thing, where you can have low flows of water that would normally just travel along the curb, could potentially have a little inlet pipe that can help trees establish. It's quite important in areas like Maroubra, which is so sandy, to keep up the water to trees. So that's a practical way, I guess, of improving the health of new trees that could be planted. But there's a New South Wales government strategy to hit a 40% tree canopy cover across the city. So that's quite an ambitious goal. Every local government area has their role to play in that. And it is really important to improving the amenity of residents and everybody really who uses the area. So it's obviously a balancing act. We need to make sure that the tree species that are chosen are appropriate. If there's overhead power lines, they have to be very carefully considered in terms of their placement. Where we don't have overhead power lines, we have a little bit more freedom in terms of the species and the heights of trees that can be chosen. But yeah, there would be a range of trees chosen. There's a range of ways we can plant those to try and get maximum, I guess, health and canopy establishment in the shorter term. I don't know if that answers the question.
Think so. All right. Thank you very much. I also have a question which has come through in relation to feedback on cycleways, and just a little bit of interest in relation to how a proposed cycleway would integrate with the rest of the proposed Randwick cycleway network. One of the commenters stated that the current cycleways feel a bit disjointed, where they start and then kind of end up, you know, on a large road with nothing to connect to. So would either of the two panelists just like to touch on the role of cycleways as well as inside of the rest of the Randwick network?
In terms of the master plan, we have picked up that north-south link along ANZAC Parade. So that's a really key one in Randwick Cycleway network, which is, it's picked up in that. It's been delivered, I believe, in the northern section. Maroubra Junction section is kind of the next priority. And then there's a future extension planned, I believe. It's not part of this project, the strategy, that's a document that exists. I think the provision of the east-west Maroubra Road one would do a lot of good in terms of connecting and making the network a bit more permeable. If we can get that east-west link as well as the north-south, it'll improve accessibility for cyclists a lot, and just make it a lot safer getting them off those main roads. So it's a lot more welcoming if we have a safe environment.
Okay, thank you. Just for anyone who is jumping on online, we do have a fair few questions, but if there are any which you would like before we wrap up in a couple more minutes, feel free. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to send them through to us directly at council@randwick.nsw.gov.au. There is a question relating to, do these plans look at improving the condition of Green Street between ANZAC Parade and Garden Street? The condition of the road and council parking is terrible, and there are lots of dumped household items along the street. Would any of the two panelists like to just touch on the treatment of Green Street between Garden Street and ANZAC Parade?
I can answer. In relation to the car park, council is looking currently at the state of the car park there. There are some joint ownership issues that are currently being looked at and being resolved, but you know, if we were to, I wouldn't necessarily say it's captured in the context of the master plan for Maroubra Junction Town Centre. And Anika, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but council probably has its own short-term strategy outside of the plan is looking at that particular car park. Additionally to that, we're also looking at our currently revising our legal dump rubbish management plan and some more creative ways to attack you know, illegal dump rubbish in the more transient areas where we see people moving in and out of premises a lot more, and in high built up areas. And Green Street is, you know, along with many streets in Kensington, Green Street's definitely one of the streets we are looking at from a legal dump rubbish perspective as well.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions which popped up from someone called Claire, is the $1.2 million upgrade in the central median of ANZAC Parade part of this master plan, or is that a separate consideration, and how does that work in with this Maroubra Junction master plan?
That's the, I believe they're referring to the Oasis project that's currently on site at the moment. Anika, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can take that. So that is a separate project. So that is obviously quite advanced. It's under construction at the moment. But we have worked, I guess that design was done with the intention that this public domain master plan was happening, and the public domain master plan has incorporated that into the whole program. So it all works together, but that project was something that council had the money to deliver earlier. So that has, it's in delivery phase at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. Before I finish up, I'll just give everyone an opportunity if there are any last questions. And just like to say thank you to everyone who has joined in so far, has asked questions and taken the opportunity out on their Monday night. 6 till 7 on a Monday night is, you know, not the quietest of times. So we're very appreciative of all of the community feedback to date and appreciate the opportunities to hear from you. What I might do is I'll just have one final last look in the chat and see where we're up to. There is a comment from an attendee in regards to the extension of the light rail. There have been consideration of charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations for cars, and the difficulties of installing them in strata schemes. And so would it be possible to future-proof the parking with electric vehicle charging? There is also, and I'm just reading this for anyone who's joining online or can't see, there are some comments, and we'll happily incorporate that into the feedback which we've received for this consultation. Comments in relation to illegal dumping. There is a query in regards to rats and the rat program and the potential treatment of those as well. And with that, I think what we might do is, for anyone, if we didn't get to touch on any of your queries, we'll endeavour to do our best to either reply in the comments or get back. Obviously, any of the feedback gets considered as part of the overall consultation piece. For those who would like to, have a little bit more of a say and like to put their full 2 cents worth to council, we'd love to actually hear it. How you get involved is there is a consultation which is open until 5 p.m. on the 29th of March. You jump on www.yoursay.randwick.nsw.gov.au. It has the documents of the full master plan as proposed, artist impressions, and also you have your ability to make your comments on the plan. We'll also be doing 3 pop-ups across the area. The first on Wednesday, the 22nd of March from 10 until 12 p.m. Thursday, the 23rd of March from 5 till 7, and then Saturday, the 25th of March from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. They're all at Pacific Square in Maroubra Junction, and you can pop by and have a look at the plans yourself and talk to some friendly staff who I'm sure would love to hear your thoughts. So to everyone who has joined us this evening, a very big thank you for hearing the presentation from Randwick Council and on the Maroubra Junction Public Domain Master Plan. And to anyone whose questions we didn't get to, apologies in regards to the time constraints, but they will all go in as part of the consultation and comments as well. So that's all from me. A big thank you to our Director of City Services, Todd Clarke, and Anika Hoffman as well for assisting Council to date. And a big thank you to everyone who has joined this evening. And that's all from me, Mayor Dylan Parker. Thank you.